fucking knock it off, man. I'm trying to make a video. I don't want this to turn into the 2 minutes hate because I'm in a good mood. I just changed the brake master cylinder on the Volvo yesterday. The rear brakes seem to not be letting off pressure, and I figured it was unlikely that both calipers went bad at the same time. I know I parked the car for a couple years. If you guys have been watching, you know that. But still unlikely that the back two would act up on their own at the same time while the front ones were not acting up. It's four-wheel disc brakes, by the way. Now, it was $37 for a new master cylinder plus the core. I'm going to keep the old one. This is the old one here, because I was looking in the owner's manual, or not the owner's manual, but the repair manual, Haynes manual, that it's pretty easy. Just take it apart, clean it up, put it back together. So what I'm looking at here is, you can see it. Look at all that junk, man. So this goes into the master cylinder like this. This is for the rear calipers. This is for the front calipers. The part that was still pretty clean in relation to back here seemed to work just fine. I went about 2 miles and the rear wheels were so hot that I couldn't hold my hand on the rim and keep it there. It would get hot after about 2-3 seconds. I'd have to take my hand off. And that was a short drive. I hope I didn't warp the rotors doing that. We'll see, time will tell. You can even look down inside of here, and to be honest, I was very relieved to see this dirt and stuff in here, because that means my hypothesis that if this thing's contaminated, then the back brakes will maybe hold too much pressure. Because after, like overnight, if I let the car sit overnight, the wheels turn freely. But if I turn the car on and pump the brakes a few times, those things are locked up. When I had it on jack stands, I had observed that. And I had done a little bit of tinkering with the brakes, but I was more focused on the other stuff I was working on. I figured I'd get it on the road and try to determine what's wrong with these later. Because the brakes were still stopping the car, they just weren't not stopping the car. And you can see even here, I poured out the remainder of the fluid that was still inside there, inside the master cylinder housing. Look at all those chunks of shit in there. The thing was loaded with shit. I really hope none of it made its way through the lines. I kind of doubt it because these ports are so small, but I might be doing a caliper overhaul after all. But I think I'm taking a step in the right direction to begin with here. I really hate just buying parts and throwing them at a problem. But through careful determination, or somewhat careful determination, I decided that this was the way to go. But like I said, the part was only $37 and I got it in my hand the next day. If I spent, the calipers are only $35 each, approximately $40 each. And if I get a couple of those, I'll probably just take the old ones and put them on the shelf to be remachined, possibly just maybe be able to take them to some machine shop that would be able to help me out. Maybe someday we'll be 3D printing these rubber type gaskets or special seals. You'd be able to actually just get somebody to print them for you relatively inexpensively instead of having like a giant factory tool up to just make those parts. So 3D printing is kind of exciting, actually. It would keep old cars like this on the road perhaps longer, you know. I was having a conversation with a guy last night on YouTube comment section. He was saying that I had mentioned that I'm working on this and the parts are still relatively available and cheap. And he said, oh, no, my friend, it's not going to be like that forever. He was talking about S10s and other vehicles. Now this is a Volvo. I mentioned that people love these cars and perhaps that's why it's profitable for people to remanufacture these parts. And he was disagreeing with me. I'm like, maybe not. I do think people like these cars enough for that to be a possibility. And you know, basically it's like they're only charging you by the pound for the metal anyway, dude. I looked up the brake master cylinder for my truck. It was only a few more dollars, but I'm sure it weighs like another pound. So it's like, that's pretty much all you're paying for. He was the guy on the internet that I was talking to last night that made the case that because the demand is lower now, the warehouses are sitting on these parts and they're just trying to get rid of them cheap. And I'm like, well, it's the same price it was 10 years ago. So yeah, it's relatively cheap considering inflation and everything that it is now. But, so I didn't disagree with the guy, but I was just saying, I hope you're wrong. And in the meantime, I'm already thinking on his wavelength because I was not planning on returning this for a $7 core. If I can actually just flush this thing out, clean it up really good, vacuum seal it in a bag and put it on my shelf, then that's what I'm gonna do. And then I would be taking a shot in the dark if I ever had to put it back on the car and hope it works. But I think it will. I mean, it's just ports. You just clean this metal out, clean everything up. Maybe put a light oil on these rubber seals before I put it back together, or see if I can perhaps buy a rebuild kit. It would probably cost about the same thing as getting the whole thing, though. That's the problem. Like, the rebuild kits cost about as much. But then, you know, like I said, maybe by then 3D printing will be available to... Because these are in decent enough condition, I think I could take them in and have somebody make them just maybe a couple thou bigger, just to accommodate for the fact that they may have compressed over the years. Anyway, I'm going kind of long on this one. Hope you guys like it. Sorry I ranted so much about the guy blowing his horn in the beginning, but it's like, just, dude, you got the grass, just go around. Everybody does it. So don't forget to face the screen, like, share, comment, subscribe, and you're probably not going to do any of that because you're not even going to watch the video. Nobody watches my videos, and I'm just so distraught about it. You know, I mean, I'm gonna oh, you don't even want to know what I'm gonna do. No, I'm just kidding. I just make these for fun. Hopefully people start watching them one day, but you know, this is just really more for me and my family and friends. So once again, have a good one.